Welcome back to Crawford-Clark Close-Up and our James Bond retrospective. There have been times over the last couple of years when many Bond fans thought the day would never come, but we are on the eve of release of No Time to Die, the series' 25th official film. Before we get there, we've been looking back over the Daniel Craig Bond movies, and we've made it to the fourth outing. Despite Craig revealing in the lead up to the release of Casino Royale back in 2006 that he was contracted for 3 Bond movies and he was excited, the unprecedented success of his third, 2012 Skyfall, practically ensured that Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli would encourage Craig to return to the tux. Pre-production on Bond 24 was a lengthy process, beginning in September 2012, when Craig announced that his contract with Eon was for 2 further films, taking him up to what would be Bond 25. As early as the month of release of Skyfall, the UK's Daily Mail newspaper reports that one of Skyfall's scribes, John Logan, will write Bonds 24 and 25 without Purvis and Wade, who had worked on the series since The World Is Not Enough in 1999. Moreover, the next 2 Bond adventures will share a story arc. Despite protestation from Skyfall director Mendes that he presented all his creativity in the last film, it's quickly reported that producers have enticed Mendes to return to direct a consecutive Bond, the first time this had happened since the stretch of movies in the 1980s directed by John Glenn. In early 2013, reports surfaced that Bond 24 will begin filming in 2014, and production designer Dennis Gassner is one of the first concrete crew signings to Bond 24 after receiving the Best Contemporary Film Design Award for Skyfall. After Adele's Oscar win for the song Skyfall, rumours immediately tout her as the first title artist since Shirley Bassey to record more than one Bond theme song. In March 2013, with Sam Mendes taking himself out of the running to direct the series' next film, Guy Ritchie, Ang Lee and Casino Royale director Martin Campbell are noted by the press as favourites to helm the next film. Danny Boyle, who directed the Olympics Daniel Craig and Her Majesty the Queen skit Happy and Glorious, suggests at this point that the scope of a Bond film is out of his comfort zone, thus ruling himself out of the equation. An interesting development considering what we'll discuss in the No Time to Die review. Harry Potter helmer David Yates, Les Miserables and The King's Speech's Tom Hooper, and left field choice Nicholas Winding Refn are all touted as replacements for Mendes, despite Mendes now having second thoughts about his departure from Bond. In June 2013, the infamous Daily Mail newspaper stirred the rumour mill by stating that Penelope Cruz is set to become the series' oldest Bond girl, and shooting for the film will begin in summer 2014. Cruz's representatives quickly shoot this down, claiming they haven't been approached by the Bond producers. Talk returns to Mendes, and he claims that he will have made a decision on whether to direct the next Bond as soon as his West End production of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory has opened. First official Bond 24 confirmation comes from the official 007 Twitter page in July 2013, when they confirm that Mendes will return to direct Bond 24, due for UK release in October 2015 and overseas in November. UK tabloid The Sun reports that Bond 25 already has a title, Devil May Care, based on the 2008 continuation novel, but tellingly based on no real evidence or sources from production. In November 2013, Eon announces they've acquired all rights to the Kevin McClory estate holdings on Blofeld and the Bond franchise, opening speculation of a return to the character in a future film. Skyfall's new Moneypenny, Q, Tanner and M, Naomi Harris, Ben Whishaw, Rory Kinnear and Ray Fiennes all suggest they're returning for Bond 24, while Skyfall cinematographer Roger Deakins announces he won't be returning for the next film. In March 2014, Michael Wilson and Barbara Broccoli speak at the Bond in Motion exhibit in London and confirm that filming will begin in December 2014 and a villain will be decided upon in a couple of months. In April, Variety reports that 12 Years a Slave lead Chiwetel Ejiofor is the front-runner to play the new villain, and that production are scouting for Scandinavian and British Bond girls. Norwegian actress Synnøve Makodi Lund confirms she's screen-tested for Bond 24 and has met with Mendes, whilst Mendes explains that many of the story themes from Skyfall around old versus new and Bond's relevancy will continue into the new film. In June 2014, it suggested that Neil Purvis and Robert Wade will be rewriting much of John Logan's Bond 24 script to give it more punch and to introduce more humorous interplay between characters. In July, stunt coordinator Gary Powell shares photos of himself and other crew members on recce's in Rome, Morocco and Austria. Any prior fan hopes for David Arnold to return to Bond composing duties are shot down by Arnold himself on his Twitter by stating that, as Mendes is returning, it's likely that Skyfall composer Thomas Newman will also return for the next film. The latest Bond girl rumour is that Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol's Léa Seydoux is joining the next film. James Bond podcast James Bond Radio reports that casting director Debbie McWilliams has put out a casting call for an imposing, extremely physically fit actor around 6'2" with an unusual appearance to play an iconic henchman. Interstellar cinematographer Hoyt van Hoytema is tipped as Bond 24 cinematographer following Roger Deakins' departure. Latino Review reveal in October that Guardians of the Galaxy's Dave Bautista has been cast as the henchman. Writer of Tom Cruise's Edge of Tomorrow, Jez Butterworth, is drafted in to touch up the existing shooting script with a month to go until shooting begins. The UK's Daily Mail reveals that Christoph Waltz has been cast as a character called Franz Oberhauser, the son of Hans Oberhauser, a ski instructor who was a father figure to Bond when he was growing up. The article suggests that Waltz's character name is a red herring, and in fact he'll be playing a new incarnation of a classic Bond villain. On December 4th, 2014, the principal cast gather for a press call at Pinewood Studios. Mendes presents, alongside Barbara Broccoli, and not only introduces the new Aston Martin DB10, but dramatically reveals the title of Bond 24, Spectre. Jesper Christensen reveals to the press that he will reprise the character Mr. White in Spectre, last seen in Quantum of Solace, and the film's plot synopsis is unveiled. A cryptic message from an unlikely source sets James Bond navigating the layers of a sinister organisation known as Spectre. As M continues fighting political pressures that threaten the future of MI6, Bond draws closer to uncovering a hidden truth that threatens to destroy everything he's fought to protect. Daniel Kleinman is also announced as returning for the title design for Spectre. Spectre marks the first Bond movie in 13 years since Die Another Day to open with the legendary signature gun barrel motif, and whilst it starts off promising, the style of the sequence feels a little rushed and uninspired. How difficult could it be to get a Craig gun barrel design right? Accepting Casino Royale's inspired new look, Quantum, Skyfall and Spectre's sequences all feel either underbaked or, in the case of Spectre, pretentious, with the dot not opening as it clearly should on the skeleton in the Day of the Dead parade, but rather fading to black with the text, "The dead are alive." The gun barrel was shot on the final day of photography on the film in July 2015. From here, we open onto visually one of the most impressive Bond openings in the 50-plus years of the franchise, but scratch below the surface and it's actually quite a lacklustre sequence that doesn't match the intrigue and adrenaline-fueled Skyfall pre-titles. It's fun seeing Bond blend into the crowd in costume with a girl, and the spectacle is certainly something missing from recent Bond adventures, but aside from Craig's confident swagger, leaving Estrella in the hotel room before climbing out of the window and scaling the roof in search of his contact, a moment where Craig's Bond has clearly come into his own in the role, the resulting collapse of the building when the bomb is detonated, Bond falling onto a sofa amidst the rubble in a sequence that may as well have come from a Roger Moore Bond, and the disappointingly executed helicopter fights make the sequence fall a little flat. Couple that with the drab colour grading that sucks all the colour out of what is supposed to be a vibrant festival, and you've got a strange Bond opening. The sequence was shot across the last 2 weeks of March 2015 in Mexico City with no two costumes alike, and the efforts of the entire crew and thousands of extras is a testament to the gravitational appeal to appear in a Bond movie, if merely for the briefest of time. From here, we segue into the 6th title design on Bond so far for Daniel Kleinman. Kleinman's monochromatic title design is littered with nods to the previous Craig Bond adventures, including Bond and the Woman free-falling, a la Bond and Camille in Quantum of Solace, a film this particular instalment largely fails to acknowledge. We'll come back to that in due course. We also have Bond and a woman embracing in a shower, a reference back to Bond and Severine in Skyfall, as well as more direct references back to the remainder of the Craig narrative arc, with a shot of Vesper drowning in Royale, Le Chiffre from Royale, Silver from Skyfall, as well as Judi Dench's M. The lyric utilised here, "A million shards of glass that haunt me from my past," is one of the best lyrics in one of the most Marmite Bond themes in recent memory. Whether you're a fan of Sam Smith and his falsetto in The Writings on the Wall, the song, unveiled in September 2015, proved to be the most successful Bond theme on the UK charts, making it to number 1, where Adele's Skyfall even had to settle for number 2. The song is certainly a divider, and whilst this reviewer holds it in reasonably high regard within the pantheon of nearly 60 years of Bond title song artists, it's admittedly easy to see why it would irk some fans, particularly after the harder-edged You Know My Name and Another Way to Die, and the classical-sounding Skyfall. And yet the song itself works fairly well with Kleinman's visuals once again. Spectre also marks the first time in many years that the title sequence contains shots or recreations of shots that will prove important in the main feature. Bond meeting Lucia at Marco Sciarra's funeral, Madeleine's picture with her father, Bond walking through the ruins of MI6, the Nine Eyes motif, which is one of the more jarring aspects of an otherwise solid design, and most explicitly Christoph Waltz sitting in the Spectre meeting at the head of the table, complete with octopus tentacles. Daniel Craig is also once again fetishised in the titles, topless, with girls stroking his chest. The man is literally on fire and noticeably becomes the first Bond actor in the series to receive a co-producer credit on the film, alongside stalwarts Broccoli and Wilson. Let's talk here about Thomas Newman's return to composing duties for Spectre. While Skyfall may be void of some of the classic bombast of David Arnold's previous efforts in the 90s, and for Craig's first 2 films, it was undoubtedly evocative of a turning point for the series. There was a maturity to Newman's sound for Skyfall, and it complemented the film brilliantly. Why then is Spectre's score such a misfire? There are so many cues that instantly take you back to more engaging sequences from Skyfall. The most standout is the recycled She's Mine track from the end of Skyfall at the Lodge, as Silver and his men set alight to Bond's home, which is used to underwhelming effect again in Spectre for the helicopter action in the pre-titles. There are, however, some positive glimmers throughout the score, the best of which is the beautiful instrumental of Writings on the Wall as Bond and Madeleine make love on the train as it's continuing on through the desert. Other moments are the old-fashioned style beats of the Bond theme playing as Bond is trying to shoot Blofeld's helicopter down in the climax, and the 20 seconds of the track for the car chase between Bond and Hinks in Rome when the 2 cars drive past the Colosseum. The point is, Newman's score should be dynamic and feel fresh, especially during some of the film's action sequences, instead of feeling stale and uninspired. Much of the film's MI6 sequences were the first to be shot on Spectre when production began in December 2014, including Bond and Tanner travelling downriver to Q's lab, as well as the scene in which Moneypenny visits Bond at his home, filmed in Notting Hill in the capital, and later reshot to have Bond waiting for Moneypenny to arrive in shirt, tie and shoulder holster rather than his pyjamas, a very nice throwback to Brosnan's Bond waiting in his hotel room to see who Carver will send in Tomorrow Never Dies. The remainder of the London-based filming with the MI6 crew, including shooting inside London City Hall, which doubles for Denby's CNS building in the film, is shot in April 2015. What was a pleasure to see on first viewing of Spectre was an immediate return to the Bond getting a grilling from M in his office scene, something sorely missed at this juncture in the film since the late Moore entries in the series. Craig and Fiennes, as Judi Dench's M successor, spar off each other wonderfully, with Bond nonchalantly explaining away his actions in Mexico City as coincidence as he was taking some overdue holiday. Of course, we're then introduced to one of the Craig era's most redundant characters, Max, in the early cast list Bruce Denby, who is looking to shake up the 00 section. One of the film's many criticisms comes through this character, who it's clear from the outset is an antagonist. Bond is unsure of his cockiness from the outset, as is M, therefore it's natural that the audience should be as well. Perhaps the only decent Denby scene in the film is between Andrew Scott and Ralph Fiennes as M, and where M talks about the importance of when having a license to kill is also having a license not to kill, and that personal judgment is still vital in these situations. Naomi Harris gets significantly less to do this time around as the newly appointed Miss Moneypenny, but manages to be the only person Bond will confide his secret to, that Dench's M instructed Bond to kill a man called Sciarra and urged him not to miss the funeral. That being said, the brief interaction between Moneypenny and M, where M is oblivious to the fact that it was Moneypenny's birthday a week ago, and an insight into Moneypenny's private life when Bond phones her during the Rome car chase, enable her to play with the role more than any of its previous incumbents. One of the film's best sequences comes when Bond and Q are reunited in Q's lab. This is the first time we get a proper Q lab since the days of Die Another Day, and it's a welcome return to the Bond fold. Bond immediately begins playing with a gun before Q diverts his attention to a smart blood program that will track Bond's movements. Remind anyone else of the very same notion used in Casino Royale? We're then given a glimpse of the gorgeous new Aston Martin DB10, but in a neat moment become as disappointed as Bond that the car has been assigned to 009 instead. Bond must settle for a watch that tells the time, yet also proves more explosive. So Q, having mentioned to Bond only in the previous film that they don't go in for exploding pens anymore, has now presented Bond with an explosive watch. Convenient for the plot later in the film, I guess. It's also fun to see Q on location with Bond later at the Hoffler Clinic, and also evading capture by some goons on a cable car. This is the first time since Tomorrow Never Dies, well, really License to Kill, that Q has assisted Bond in the field, and the more of Ben Whishaw we get to see, the better. There's a lovely nod to the late long-term Bond associate producer Tom Pevsner, as well, as Q tells Bond he's staying in the Pevsner Hotel whilst in Austria, which is guaranteed to raise a smile from any Bond fan in the know. Pevsner passed away a few months before production on Spectre began, at the age of 87, and he worked on the Bond series from For Your Eyes Only in 81 up to GoldenEye in 95. Let's take a moment here to reflect on many of the nods and references back to past Bond movies in the series. Bearing in mind that Craig's Bond movies are supposed to be a new timeline all their own, and also given that Spectre isn't actually an anniversary release Bond like Die Another Day or Skyfall, there are many callbacks that alone would warrant their own hour video to discuss. They range from the avert, the barrel rolls in the helicopter echoing the car barrel rolls in The Man with the Golden Gun, mercifully this time without a recreation of the slide whistle, to the more subtle Bond chucking the black hat onto the bed in the hotel room with Estrella as a nod to Live and Let Die with Rosie Carver. Bond trying to regain control of the helicopter is a nod to Bond frantically trying to raise the plane in GoldenEye. Then of course you have Craig sporting the white tux and red carnation on the train, which calls back to Connery at the beginning of Goldfinger. Bond talks to the rat in the hotel room, just like he converses with the rat in Diamonds Are Forever. There's a nice nod to Dr. No, where Bond and Madeline are shown to their separate rooms at the villain's lair, and some nice reminders of License to Kill. Bond using the sniper gun on the rooftop to spy on Marco Sciarra makes you think of Bond scoping out Sanchez, as well as Bond introducing Dr. Swan and Q to each other in the hotel room, as he does when Q joins Bond and Pam in Isthmus. One more for good measure. Bond taunts Oberhauser later in the film by remarking, "Visionaries, psychiatric wards are full of them," in a nice play on Bond taunting Dr. No. World domination, same old dream. Where Skyfall had the sacrificial lamb of Severine and the main Bond girl was M herself, Spectre does give us Estrella in the pre-titles, Lucia Sciarra, played by the greatly underused Monica Bellucci, considering how much the press made of her casting in the film, and the lead this time around is Léa Seydoux as Dr. Madeleine Swann. The build-up to Lucia Sciarra is handled well, Bond conversing with the grieving widow at her husband's funeral, who can't even produce a tear, before one of the film's most evocative scenes. Silent assassins try to take out Lucia in her home, but are bested by Bond, who shoots them both in the back of the head, before having time to seduce Lucia for more information about her husband and the organisation he works for. Bond is an animal in this moment, clawing at Lucia, smashing glasses to startle her, and then pounces with his signature line, Bond. James Bond. It's a shame, therefore, that Bellucci doesn't have enough to sink her teeth into with this character. Unfortunately, Léa Seydoux's Madeleine suffers in much the same way, with a poorly written character, hiding out in a clinic which Bond manages to track her down to immediately. Bond rescues her from the heavies and she's mad at him for it, and decidedly frosty towards him for telling her that her father is dead and that he's an assassin, before she inexplicably falls into his arms after the fight on the train. Seydoux is a fine actress, as witnessed in the aforementioned Ghost Protocol, as well as in breakout Blue is the Warmest Colour, and she was offered the part of Madeleine after her second audition for the Bond team in April 2014. Seydoux identified with Ava Green's portrayal of Vesper in Royale, but admitted, "There's no way I could have imagined myself playing a Bond girl nearly 10 years later. For me, that dream was too big." While Madeleine may be a problematic Bond girl in the canon, Seydoux is beautiful and feisty enough to appeal to a man like Bond. She's reminiscent in many ways of Melina Havelock or Anya Amasova, in that she's characteristically cold and resolute for much of the narrative, until the moments when she fleetingly cracks a smile. I'm just hoping that as the first leading lady in 6 decades of the series to return for the next film, she'll be given more to play with and more backstory in No Time to Die. If the trailers are anything to go by, the character could well be redeemed. A constant in this age of Bond is Daniel Craig as our protagonist. As director Mendes points out, Craig has the hardest job of anyone in the story, as Bond is a remarkably difficult part to play, because he says very little. The moment you make him say too much, it's not Bond anymore. He operates on instinct a lot of the time. He has his own inner demons and he doesn't reveal them to other characters, despite Madeleine testing him at the clinic and suggesting, much like Vesper had done, that Bond has a choice whether to continue pursuing this life or to jack it all in. Mendes furthers, in Spectre the audience has got to see him, in a sense, fall apart and put himself back together again. Daniel's done that brilliantly. The issue that many Bond fans have, however, is that Craig's Bond has mainly been doing nothing but. There are no standalone individual adventures here. This is all one story arc, with previous villains all seemingly, and rather tenuously, part of this mysterious organisation from the beginning, and Bond has gone from rookie in Casino Royale to earning the chance to tell audiences he's Bond, James Bond, standing triumphantly over Mr. White, before reverting back into a rogue assassin for Quantum. Then he starts Skyfall mid-mission, apparently at the top of his game, before he's shot on said mission, presumed dead, and must prove his worth that he can pass the tests before he's admitted back into MI6. Skyfall once again ends triumphantly with Bond telling Fiennes M that he's ready to get back to work, before, in the words of M, he's on his own for much of Spectre. To say it's convoluted would be an understatement. All this said, there's a confidence coupled with nonchalance in Craig's delivery fourth time around. He certainly looks the best in the role to date, and seems to be comfortable in the skin of the character, but this has also been remarked by some fans as complacency, saying that Craig looks bored and wears the same facial expression throughout proceedings this time around. Craig gets the chance to finally deliver the full vodka martini, shaken not stirred line, only to be taken down a peg at the clinic, who don't serve alcohol, in an amusing sequence, and Bond's suggestion of chucking the prolific digestive enzyme shake down the toilet to cut out the middleman is evidence of great humour injected into the film. The humour feels more forced when Bond is responding to Denby's plans to alter the 00 section. That all sounds lovely. Much like Dalton before him, the dry sarcasm does feel forced from Craig. What's most striking about Spectre is its pacing. The film opens with the spectacle of the Day of the Dead and is one of the action highlights of the whole film. The pace then takes a nosedive with many dialogue scenes and not enough injection of action that we've become so accustomed to with the Bond series. In January 2015, filming took place in Lake Altensee in Austria for Bond and Mr. White's reunion, and the scene is one of the best in the film. Bond sailing across the lake to Mr. White's cabin has a haunting quality, and once inside, the dialogue between the two sparkles. The action moves on to the Ice Q restaurant in Solden, doubling for the Hoffler Clinic, which itself looks like something out of On Her Majesty's Secret Service on the Austrian Alps. Filming in Rome commenced in February 2015, and it's amazingly the first time in 24 films that Bond has visited. The Palazzo Cardenza, where the Spectre meeting takes place, had its exterior shots filmed at Blenheim Palace in the UK, and the interiors were of course shot at Pinewood. Here we get a modern-day Spectre meeting room sequence that looks majestic but sadly pales in comparison to the more simplistic sequence in Thunderball 50 years earlier. We're supposed to be following subtitles whilst keeping clued up with Spectre's plot to cause unrest in different countries, yet everything seems to be delivered to us in code. Waltz's shadowy lead enters the room sitting at the head of the table, and at this point the scene should be bristling with tension and power, but it falls incomprehensibly flat. It's only when Dave Bautista's intimidating Mr. Hinks enters the room and violently removes the eyes of one of the Spectre members before taking his place at the table that the scene gets going, before the meeting abruptly ends with Waltz's Oberhauser recognising Bond, who is watching the proceedings, before Bond flees in the Aston and Hinks makes chase in his Jaguar. Mendes explained in behind-the-scenes footage that he wanted the cars to be chasing each other in a largely deserted city to generate mystery and intrigue, but again it comes across as really lacklustre. The CGI on Bautista's face in the car is far more noticeable than the CGI on Bond atop the Grand Bazaar in Skyfall that fans were quick to moan about, and the scene is played both for exposition and for laughs, with Bond bumping into an unsuspecting elderly man and setting off his airbag. The gimmick of the ejector seat and Bond hearing 009's playlist in the car whilst playing with the controls also adds nothing to the scene, but the flamethrower on the Aston's exhaust button is a neat trick, engulfing the front of Hinks's Jaguar to provide ample distraction for Bond to make a swift exit. In June and July 2015, the final location for the Bond crew was Erfoud in Morocco, a country that the Bond team last visited to film The Living Daylights. Bond discovers that Madeleine is familiar with the organisation named Spectre, and that her father, Mr. White, was a part of said organisation. Mr. White entrusts Bond to take Madeleine to L'Américain, which turns out to be a hotel in Morocco. Madeleine drunkenly rebuffs Bond, and Bond trashes the room in search of information before finding a back room full of files and coordinates to the location of Oberhauser. The sequence also teases us with a potential Vesper flashback as Bond locates a video with her name and interrogation written on it. This is quickly forgotten as Madeleine suddenly decides she's going to accompany Bond on his mission to find out what her father was trying to achieve. From here we get Bond and Madeleine on the train with their dirty martinis, contemplating the toll it takes on the life of an assassin before they're rudely interrupted by Hinks and the film's best action sequence plays out. Without a doubt this is the most impressive one-on-one on a train since Bond and Grant in From Russia with Love, and the stakes are raised for once in the film as to how Bond is going to get out of this unscathed. The answer? Strap Hinks up to some barrels and let him get pulled off the train. Hearing Hinks proclaim shit as he realises his mistake is akin to the way we all cringed when we heard Jaws speak at the end of Moonraker. Say no more. For the lovers of Spectre, it's hard to refute the fact that the convenience of the plot, tying together all elements of villainy from the Craig era so far into one organisation, is trite. It was clear as soon as Waltz was cast as the villain of the film and that Spectre was on the table that this was the producers deciding that the time was right to reintroduce Blofeld back into the fold. But the idea of Oberhauser revealing that he's the author of all Bond's pain and that his issues stem from his father giving Bond more attention than him when they grew up together is so underbaked and poorly executed that it makes you wonder why anyone working on the film thought that this would work. The beginning of the film's finale in Blofeld's crater base and the crass torture sequence lifted directly from the novel Colonel Sun feel lazy and in need of more screenwriting time, and Bond's incredibly easy escape from the base with Madeleine practically unscathed, all for the sake of a world record-making explosion on the set, makes even the die-hard fans hold their heads in puzzlement. The problem lies once again with a great charismatic actor being given next to nothing of any substance to work with. We've seen Waltz play intimidating. Check out the fantastic opening to Tarantino's Inglourious Basterds, coincidentally also featuring Léa Seydoux for proof. Here he's more of an enigma, trying to get inside Bond's head, and he makes for one of the least threatening personifications of Blofeld so far in the series. Again, this could be redeemed in No Time to Die, given the brief glimpses we've been afforded, but time will tell. We of course now need to return to London for the actual finale, and this is where the term Scooby-Doo gang comes into play, as M, Q, even Moneypenny and Tanner are out of the office coming to Bond's aid in tracking down Ernst Stavro Blofeld. Madeleine becomes the all-too-familiar damsel needing rescue, and Bond has to navigate his way through the ruins of the old MI6 building, which we already know is rigged for demolition, to either catch the villain or rescue the girl. Bond and Madeleine escape the demolished old MI6 and make chase, with Bond using his Walther to shoot down Blofeld's helicopter. On Westminster Bridge, Bond looks as if he's about to shoot Blofeld before deciding against it when he sees Madeleine waiting for him on the other end of the bridge, and he decides to toss his gun into the Thames. Dramatically, this makes things more exciting where Blofeld is concerned, as he's now detained by the government, ready to be potentially broken out in the next film. But what next for Bond? Is he to finally stick to his guns and quit the service to be with Madeleine, who he's had next to no chemistry with for the entire film? Bond takes Madeleine and his newly rebuilt Aston DB5 off into the distance, and we're none the wiser as the Bond theme takes us into the end credits. 7 months of principal photography on Spectre was completed in July 2015, and within weeks of the end of production, the theatrical trailer teases coming events, making it look as if we've got a Bond that will stand up as one of the series' best. Broccoli and Wilson proclaimed they were delighted to be reunited with Mendes. Skyfall took the series to the next level, and Sam has delivered another exciting and dramatic film, classic Bond with a contemporary twist. For Mendes, it was now time to officially bow out from the series, proclaiming before he left that "my 5 years directing Skyfall and now Spectre have been some of the most extraordinary of my life." Spectre held its world premiere at the Royal Albert Hall on its official day of cinematic release, Monday, October 26, 2015, and the reviews came in. The Guardian proclaimed Spectre to be a 5-star Bond. Daniel Craig has grown into the role of the British spy with flair and sang-froid, and this inventive, intelligent and complex new outing showcases him brilliantly. The Hollywood Reporter review was less favourable as soon as Spectre got its overseas release. Spectre contains enough dazzle and daring-do to keep the Bond brand afloat, but not enough to make it a game-changing reboot in the manner of Skyfall. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I recall coming out of watching Spectre and being swept up in the thrill of seeing another Bond on the big screen. I saw the film at least 4 times within the week of its release and was quick to remark that it was the best Bond movie I'd ever seen, exclaiming, "This is the most impressive film in the series to date. Everything seems to work brilliantly this time around. Craig has never been better, the action sequences are fantastic, and Madeleine Swann is a very engaging Bond girl. Sam Mendes, please do another." This is Bond back to his very best. The film sadly does not hold up to repeat viewings. Writer Neil Purvis makes an astute point which pinpoints for this reviewer why Spectre fails significantly when compared to Skyfall. You can have as many explosions as you like, but the dramatic core of it has got to work. The problem is, tepid action aside, there's not enough drama and emotional engagement to keep you invested in Spectre's plot. Everything feels very pedestrian, even the cinematography is lacking in comparison to Roger Deakins' work on Skyfall. Apologies now for the pun, but with the mixed reviews, the writing was certainly on the wall as to whether Spectre would deliver another billion-dollar Bond. Of course, the buzz around London amidst the 2012 Olympics and the fact that Skyfall was released to coincide with the franchise's 50th anniversary played a significant part in the film crossing over $1 billion worldwide, but Spectre was still a sizable hit, making $880 million worldwide and proving that Craig's Bond is still the one to top. Contrary to Craig's flippant remarks with the press in the run-up to Spectre's release that he'd rather slash his wrists than play Bond again, Craig actually remained enthusiastic about playing one of celluloid's most lauded characters. I felt energised on this movie. It felt like it was my first time again because Sam was in a great place and I was in a great place with him. We were both encouraging each other and pushing each other. This has been 2 years in the making from beginning to end, from script to the final part of filming. It has been tough at times, it's been exhausting, but it's the best job in the world. That's about all you want to hear from your current 007, isn't it? So Bond 25 was about to start that typically quick turnaround of Bond adventures. Right? Right? From Crawford-Clark Close-Up. Where does Spectre sit for you in your Bond ranking? Let us know your thoughts on the film and on our review in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please click subscribe to be notified when new content appears on the channel. Come and find us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on the movie app Letterboxd, just search CC Close-Up, and you can drop us an email with suggestions for future reviews on the channel to crawfordclarkcloseup@gmail.com. In the words of Blofeld himself, it's been a long time, and finally, here we are. You may not believe it, Bond fans, but we've made it to the release of surely the most anticipated blockbuster of all time, No Time to Die, Daniel Craig's 5th and final Bond adventure. Check back here real soon for our review of the movie. Thanks for watching, and until next time, that's a wrap.